everyone. I'm Vince. I'm from Monroe, Wisconsin. I chase all over the place. It's a terrible place to live if you're a storm chaser because you got to drive ridiculous amount of miles, about 10 times a week. I hate it, but that's where I'm stuck for a little while. I've been chasing storms for probably 6 or 7 years. I have a daughter, and she's 5 years old, and she loves watching tornado videos. So even if I don't sell any videos or make any money, at least somebody gave a damn. Otherwise, new to the podcast here. Norman just asked if I'd be interested in being on and co-hosting, and I said, sure, why not? So here I am.
Hi, gang. My name is Matthew Cappucci. I'm a meteorologist for the Washington Post Capital Weather Gang, where I've been about 2 years. I now work for Fox 5 here in D.C., Channel 5 here. I've had 3 days on the job so far, loved every minute of it, and I also do WAMU as well. Love all things weather, love chasing, getting out in the field. I got 7 good tornadoes this year, so hopefully I'll still have a chance to get out next year. But my favorite office is the one outside.
Good answer. So, Matthew, what got you into weather?
Honestly, I've loved it since I was probably only 2 years old. I remember being obsessed with the anemometers spinning on people's roofs, even though I couldn't pronounce them, given that I was 2 and could hardly talk. When I was 7, I saved my money to buy a video camera so I could storm chase, and I'd ride around the neighborhood on a metal bicycle storm chasing and aiming this little camcorder at the sky. When I was 9, I started doing weather for public access TV in town, and I had a little felt green screen. I made my own felt green screen that I hung on my wall in high school, and the video samples are pretty cringy, but it got me some exposure in front of the green screen. When I was 14, I came down to D.C. from Cape Cod for weather camp. Loved it so much, I kept the same Metro card ever since, and I said I have to live in D.C. someday. And shortly thereafter, I started going to the AMS conferences, the American Meteorological Society. I got to meet a lot of really nice folks there, do some presentations, started doing them year after year, and it's been kind of that way ever since.
I'll say, Vince, go ahead and follow on to that. What got you in weather since you were here for episode 1?
Well, I always hate that question. I say that as kind of a joke because I don't know. I can relate to Matthew, though. I did that, too, when I was in, middle school. I think I had a felt green screen. It never worked because I never had the right lighting. And apparently I didn't have the lighting has to be on the screen, not the subject. So it was just always shadowy. And, I'd put it into Sony Vegas and try to run the chroma key, and it would look terrible. But I don't know. I've been doing, kind of amateur storm chasing even when I was in, 3rd grade, just sitting out there and writing down what I saw. And I don't know what got me into it. I've just kind of always done it. And ever since I got out of high school, 7 years ago or whatever, I just kind of started doing it all the time. I got a job managing an ambulance company that allowed me some freedom, and was able to kind of start my own business and do my own thing. And I left that. So now I've been kind of taking it and running with it. So long story short, I have no idea. I just kind of do it, I guess.
Yeah, I've noticed, especially with episode 1, and I've watched a couple other podcasts, that us, weather people, it's we always, there's, really no specific reason why we're into it. It's we have, a born, ability that we like weather. But we do have, I at least have a couple, significant weather impacts that I've had over the past couple years that made me be okay, well, I like weather, but I want to actually turn this into, an actual profession, an actual career. So, Matthew, did you have any of those experiences? If you experienced, any, hurricanes or tornadoes or any just significant weather experiences?
As for convection, no, which is ironic because convection, showers, thunderstorms, tornadoes, and hurricanes are my biggest areas of enthusiasm and really ability. And instead, being on Cape Cod growing up, I got some snowstorms, I got a little bit of thunder snow, but overall, nothing really significant from a convective standpoint. I got hail twice as a child, once on June 24th, 2008, and the other also in 2008 on August 16th. I remember the latter occasion. It was around 6:30 in the evening. I was watching the radar, and I didn't have any fancy radar app back then. I don't think apps even existed back then. I was 11 years old. Instead, I was looking at the local ABC affiliates radar on their website. I think it was WCVB.com. And I was looking at radar, and I said to my parents, "Oh, I think we're going to get big hail." And they're like, "Nah," because they had only seen hail once or twice before as well. And so we're sitting there, the storm's coming in, we watch the storm come in and go out, and that's that. But it was very unusual in that we were kind of tail end Charlie along a squall line of storms near the Cape Cod Canal. It backbuilt, and so we went from storm to nothing to all of a sudden storm, again, as kind of that second wave came in. But that's when the hail started coming down, and it came in like this. And we were getting hail pretty good size for Cape Cod, roughly about $half to almost golf ball size, and had these little spikes on it. It shredded the trees of leaves, which was amazing. And it smelled so weird afterwards. And I was obsessed. I loved hail. And after that, I was like, ooh, I got to get baseballs someday or softballs, which is now why I am obsessed with driving into the softball size hail. We did get some pretty good nor'easters, though, in the wintertime. We got one on December 9th, 2005. Actually, 2005 had one on December 9th and then one earlier that year on January 28th. But the December one was neat because we weren't expecting much out of that one. I was in, second grade at the time, Mrs. McKenna's class. So I was 7 years old. And we were thinking about like a rainy nor'easter type event. Didn't look like that much on Cape Cod. We went to school that day, and the GFS model had us dropping about 13 millibars in 3 hours and mixing 80 knot winds down to the surface, which immediately, like the local weather service said, hell no, there's not a chance that's happening, and just completely threw out the GFS. And in the end, the GFS ended up being spot on. We dropped 13 millibars, 3 hours, this crazy storm that passed inside what we call the benchmark, the 40 north, 70 west benchmark. It rode up the Cape Cod Canal. We had winds gusting to 105 miles per hour on outer Cape Cod. There in the warm sector, we had winter water spouts come ashore with temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s, producing tornado damage as they moved ashore on the outer Cape. Of course, I don't think those ever wound up being confirmed, but we did have reports from the public and from the fire department out there of these water spouts and evidence of damage. There were a couple microbursts, like it was crazy. And then on the cold side, just 15, 20 miles away, we had a band of thunder snow that resulted from cold air advection in the Comma Head. It had, I think, 2 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rates. It was insane as it crossed through southeastern Mass, and a plane landing at Logan Airport flew through that band, got struck by lightning, blew off the left wingtip. They had to make an emergency landing in the snowstorm from lightning. And then in between, we had an eye about 10-ish miles wide of crystal clear skies and calm winds. Never seen anything like that before. We had a storm, I think, back in February or March of this year that came close, but nowhere near as powerful. Like, it was dynamic, just not as powerful.
Wow, that's crazy. So I seen you go out chasing this past May, and I'll say this is my first plane trip. I took the week off, the 24th to 31st. It was just a day after my graduation, and
Nice.
I told my parents, I was like, I can't wait to go, and this is like a year prior, and they were like, well, no, I don't. He's like, this is too dangerous. But with like local setups, I always go out, try to chase, and try to like prove myself to them that I actually care about what I do. And they eventually somehow were like, okay, go ahead, just be careful, and just keep us updated. So. What was your planes experience out there?
This year was better than any year I've had before, which I felt like this year had comparatively few like big day setups, but all the mesoscale events wound up being very chaseable, wound up being things that were forecastable. I wouldn't say overly obvious targets like May 26th, for example, in southwest Nebraska. I was farther south along the dry line. That day I screwed up, but I still got an LP supercell. But overall, it was a great setup. Things started happening really quickly on the Lock at Texas Day on April 23rd, which is my first day out on the plains. Like, I got out to, I'm trying to think. My truck was in Birmingham, Alabama at the time. I parked down there for any storm chases in the deep south. Nothing really wound up happening. Like, I went down for the March 26th event. I was in the Greensboro, Alabama tornado. I was right next to it, but you couldn't see a darn thing because it was completely rain-wrapped, and that's how things are down in the south. But I eventually went back down on April 19th and started driving my truck westwards to Dallas to reposition. My friends Alan and Gabriel came down. I picked them up on the 22nd late at night. We stayed in Dallas that night, and I still had to work for the Washington Post at this point. Like, I took some vacation time, but I was still trying to work full days. So I got up about 5:30 that morning. I'd only had 3 hours of sleep. Got up at 5:30, did couple articles, did a radio show, did another article, did a couple radio hits, finished everything by roughly 11 a.m., almost noontime. Filed them both in the car, and then I did some quick forecasting, looked at everything, and I've been thinking about Quanah, Texas for days, which is up near the Red River. And we just drove out there, got there around 2:15, 2:30-ish, had maybe 20 minutes and then convective initiation, and we were on those tornadoes, and it was wonderful. It was just the best. And it was neat because neither of them are meteorologists. Like, they have no background in weather whatsoever. And it was fun because it was the most convenient chase I've ever had. Like last year, I got next to nothing. I was inside a QLCS EF1 tornado. That was kind of cool because debris was flying right past me, and I was like, huh, it's pretty windy right now. But this year, it was pretty fun. But don't try that at home. But yeah, this year, like first chase, kind of baptism by fire. It was great for both of them. And that was Gabriel's only chase because he had to go back the next day. Like, he was just aiming for a one-day chase, and I was glad he got to see what he wanted. Alan stuck around for a week. After that chase, we had another chase where we were on an EF3. We got right next to it, but again, it was rain wrapped. That was the one near Benjamin, Texas on April 25th or 26th. And then, yeah, so there was that. There was a dead period, so I just went and hung out at a cheap hotel in Oklahoma City, actually in Norman. I had a deal at the Hilton up there, so it was only like $42 a night, so I stayed there all week long. Just typed the whole time and did all my Washington Post work, had full days. I interviewed with Fox Weather while I was there. And then, let's see, May 16th, my buddy Alan came back, picked him up in Oklahoma City. Same deal. Next day, I worked at 4 or 5 in the morning till roughly 10 a.m. We drove 6 hours down in Midland, Odessa, Texas, like nonstop. I think we stopped once for gas and for food, and then I just kept driving the whole time. We got there, convective initiation, and that day, all the supercells, they were looking good. LCLs were a little bit too high for my liking, but the supercells kept splitting, and the left splits were proving dominant. So I was like, what is this, just going to be a hail day? And we knew that it would be a day where there'd be good hail, but everything kept splitting. Left splits were winning, but I kept hanging south, and even though radar was not overly impressive for the right split, visually it looked decent. Like, there was a nice fault. The colors, the texture, they just kind of looked suspect. So I hung with it for about an hour and a half, and Alan was like, what are we doing here? Nothing's happening. And finally, I was one of like 3 or 4 people who were on the force and storm long before it really popped up. And then all of a sudden, as we're sitting there, I just watched the sky transform to like an amazing striated supercell. We were in the inflow notch. It passed just to our west, and we were watching this perfect crisp funnel come in, touchdown, gorgeous sunset colors behind. So we got a couple tornadoes with that. That was great. And then got a meh chase in Colorado, and then the Selden, Kansas day. That was the day where everybody played south. I've been in Colby, Kansas, like right next to Selden all day long. Drove south after work. I should have hung near the boundary. And then finally that evening was fun because I had hung south. I was giving up on everything. I was going back to my hotel in Colby. And so I was driving back north. I was set to meet my friend Janine from study abroad in Colby for dinner because she was driving west on I-70 from Oklahoma City trying to get to Denver, Colorado. So I said, let's meet around 7 o'clock. So she said, okay. And so it's about 6:30. I'm driving north. I haven't been looking at radar. I'm kind of, meteorologically depressed at this point. And I see this thunderhead in front of me that just has that look. And when you've been doing it long enough, you know what that look is.
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, that's going to do something. And it was only about 10, 15 minutes away from Colby. So I called up Kelby and I said, hey, I'm just going to run north of town. Let's push back an hour. She said, oh, can I come? I want to see the storm. I was like, nothing's going to happen. I'm doubtful about this one. So she said, all right, I'll see you at 8 o'clock. So driving north and going like 75 because it is a 75 zone. And the storm just looks better and better and better. And it has a tornado warning on it. And nothing confirmed, but I'm like, damn, that structure is amazing. And the road network was perfect in that it was southwest to northeast. I rode along this road, and I'm looking at just the hook. You can see the hook visibly. It's this weird blue turquoise aquamarine color with the rain and the hail and everything. And it was only about a quarter mile north of the road. Like, I was just skirting it. And as I'm going through it, I see a perfect funnel kind of in the opaque rain curtains. I'm like, okay, there's something on the ground. It was still probably a couple miles away. So I blast east, and all of a sudden, within about 4 or 5 minutes, this wall cloud, maybe a quarter mile in front of me, is just hanging on the ground. And I'm watching tornadoes dip down and really just start sucking things up. And the condensation funnel vortex at times just pop up and dissipate and suddenly materialize. It was very smoky in nature. That was a really cool part. It was like diaphanous, very vaporous. And I was passing, like everybody was pulled to the side of the road, and I was kind of like late to the party. A bunch of storm chasers already there. I was like, screw this, I'll just pass because like I'm already going anyway. So I just pass everybody, and in my head I'm like, is this allowed? Because I've never really been that close to a good chaseable tornado before. And I wound up as like car number 4 or 5 back from the tornado. It's across the road in Selden, and I pulled out to get a picture because it was only 1,000 feet in front of me in this amazing multi-vortex structure. Me being excitable, my car door was ajar, and I was in kind of the donut hole around the tornado. So winds were actually pretty calm when I first pulled over. And so I'm in the donut hole, go to take a picture. Suddenly RFD hits. So winds pick up like this. They bend my door back, tweak it, so now I can't close it. But the weirdest part, the RFD winds were warm. Like I've never had a warm RFD before. We were getting temperatures in the mid 80s, and it only lasted 5-10 seconds. Then you have cold again, but then you kept having these spurts, these interspersed periods of very warm wind and dry too. And I'm assuming that not only helped tighten the tornadic circulation, but given that it was warmer, perhaps enhanced buoyancy and subsequently boosted the odds of tornadogenesis. But that was a great storm. It was just amazing. So like an hour later, I'm limping my truck, which has the busted door at this point, back to Kansas. I'm back to Colby down the road. I'm covered in mud because, tornadoes are windy and so are storms. And so all the mud is coming down on me. I'm covered in rain, soaked and whatnot. The door is all busted. I have like grass in my hair. And Kelby's already waiting for me in the parking lot at the restaurant. So I pull up and I'm literally like hand out the door, holding on to it, driving with the other hand. And I hop out, the door's hanging. Oh no, that's right. I got the door to close, but I didn't want to open it again. Like it was partially closed, but I was still kind of holding it. So I went out the window. So I rolled down my window and then just went out the window head first. And then like my feet came out last. And of course I had the grass and everything all over me. And Kelby just stood there and said, "This is exactly how I figured you'd show up," which makes sense. That's pretty much me. I'm always showing up a mess or something.
Now, was that what day did you leave out there? What was your last
I
day?
left on May 27th.
On the 27th.
And it was a tough call. Like, I would have loved to have stayed out there. The Post paid for about 25-30% of my chasing. Well, 25, which was nice of them. Like, anytime I get something good, they try to spot me a little money for it. So they want to give me, like, I think $930, $940, which every little bit counts. The rest, it's just my own money. Jason, my boss, let me take vacation time by the hour, which was great. But I just couldn't really justify being out there for much longer, given the propensity for it to be a really dry period. I wish I'd chased a little bit of high plains, but in the end, I came back. I also had a vacation to Florida slated that I had to go on. I say had to, like I wanted to go on. But I came back here end of May, and that's right around the time I think May 11th, June 11th was the time I applied for the Fox 5 job online here in DC. The news director got back to me within 3 days and said, "Hey, let's schedule an interview." So I was like, okay. So I did. And I was surprised. The interview went really well. Super nice guy. Didn't seem to care about my age. But as soon as I logged on, he said, "Look, I have sons older than you. This is a pretty unusual circumstance." I'm like, well, I figured that. But in the end, he wound up hiring me. I found out, I think, 3 Mondays ago that I got the job. But that's when I was slated to go on vacation. So it was a really busy time. My first day at Fox 5 was the day I got back from vacation on the 22nd. And I also hadn't had a chance to give like my full 2 weeks notice at the Post. So I was taking vacation time and trying to work both jobs simultaneously. It was busy.
So yeah, I imagine, and I always think about May 26th. I'd say that was probably one of the worst days of my life, but as chasing. But it was also really nice. I mean, I've also targeted the dry line further south, and my original target was oh god, I hate to say it. It was in southwest Nebraska. It was near McCook.
Same.
Nebraska.
I was gonna stay in Colby.
Yeah.
If I was in Colby, it would have been like 30-40 minutes north.
And just to rub more salt in the wound, I stayed in Hays, Kansas the night. And there was a tornado. I was like, oh my gosh.
Same.
That whole day was kind of a mistake on my behalf. I got the morning storms because they were just west of Colby, and they produced, I'm sure you remember those tennis to baseball size hailstones. And it was crazy. Like the HER had nothing. I've never had a time when I've woken up at Well, I'd been up since about 5:30, but I look out the window around 9:30, 10 a.m. Sky to my west is pitch black. I wasn't expecting anything because I checked the HER and there was nothing. And I wasn't like lazy forecasting. I just hadn't had a chance because I was working for the Post at that point all morning. Didn't think I was going to chase until the afternoon. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what is going on? So I just drive one or two exits up the road on the highway, like 20 minutes, and just this crazy blue green hue to the sky that I've never seen that dramatically before. But it was an amazing morning storm. The afternoon, I, like everybody else, went south. That was near Scott City, Kansas. I should have gone north. I think if we had more weather balloons, we'd know that there was a little bit more convective inhibition down there than we thought. I still think we should have 4 weather balloons per day instead of 2. Frankly, there would be ways in the Weather Service to kind of cut back on some things and spend more money on the weather balloons instead. But yeah, that's just me. I'm a huge weather balloon person.
Yeah, and I'll say, Vince, I didn't know you stayed in Hays, Kansas that night. What? Tell me about that day.
Well, so I basically arrived super early that morning. I had to go back after Selden. So I remember, funny thing about Selden, I remember passing Matthew and he had the tumbleweed in the back of his truck and it was like,
Oh, you suck.
yeah, it was getting sucked up as we passed you. And that's right when those vortices were spinning up. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. I wish I had that on video, but
Oh, I was gonna say if you did. Oh, that'd be so good.
oh, it was great. Yeah. I mean, I got a picture of you like hanging out of your window, but I got to find it. When I find it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, I had to drop my girlfriend back off at home because she had to work like the next day or whatever. So I had to come back to Wisconsin and then go back down to Kansas like the next day. But I saw that moderate risk and everything just started going haywire. And I'm like, okay, it's, 10 o'clock at night. I guess I'm turning around and going. So I drove back down. And I think I got somewhere over by Salina before I stopped at like 10 in the morning and just sat back with it and stayed for a little bit. And then I was going to go to McCook, but I don't know why I didn't. And I really wish I would have because I'm pretty sure I would have been on those storms. So I guess it's just kind of one of those things where you got to trust your first instinct. And that would have been a perfect example of why we do that.
Yeah, that was. I've always
Yeah.
learned in chasing, like, you just gotta be patient. And I always go with my first guess, and some days I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. And it's when you're in the moment, it's kind of for me it is anyway. It's very hard to like go with your first instinct, even though you always tell yourself that. But I did meet Pecos Hank that morning on the 26th to come for a suite because me and Marcus
Ooh.
Reynolds stayed at where we stayed at the Super 8 right across the street from his Comfort Suites, and we didn't know he stayed there. I donated to his Patreon that morning, which I kind of find ironic. But we went to go like IHOP or something. And we were originally like, I was telling him like, hey, McCook's gonna be it today. Like, I really think Southwest Nebraska is gonna be the good play today. And he's like, well, Kansas has the better parameters, and he kind of persuaded me into Kansas, and I just said, whatever, Kansas. And we were walking out, and I seen Petco's Hankin with his near his SUV, and we talked to him for a little bit, and that was a lot of fun. But I did manage to get that same cell, Matthew, that you were on, that low precip, and I'll say that is beautiful. And for being in Ohio, we hardly ever get anything like that because it's just like all of ours is so HP and just really grungy. But experiencing that, like, I have plans because I'm gonna be starting college here at Ohio University this fall, and hopefully I want to get out to the plains and finish my degree. But we'll see what happens. But
I got a buddy in my
Oh
class
yeah.
who just graduated from Ohio for meteorology.
oh really? Where do you know where he went?
Yeah, it was University of Ohio for meteorology. He's in my class now. He couldn't find a job uh, outside with his degree, so he decided to join the Air Force.
Okay, that's really cool.
Nice.
But
So, what branches of meteorology are you guys kind of planning to go into?
I'd like to be. I'd like to work for the Weather Service. I've talked to a couple people. I don't know if you know who Rob Hart is, but he used to work for National Weather Service in Charleston, in IWFO.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I talked to him a whole lot. He actually helped me with a research paper I did for English class my senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, I talked to him and he helped me through it. And I actually got 95 on it, so I'm pretty happy. And I asked him, I was like, hey, can I do can I like do an intern or can I, kind of just go to the Weather Service and tour it out? And he said, anytime, just let me know. But sadly, he moved to Montana, so either way, yeah. So I'm gonna try to get down there and see if I can get a tour. But I don't know. I'm just trying to just learn more, just try to better myself, And I just want to constantly learn, but especially because I want to start chasing a Dixie too. But I also don't want to go down there with no experience. So if you know who Brandon Kopic is, I'm gonna be chasing with him a little bit. He offered, and I definitely accepted it. He's definitely one of my favorite chasers, and I've always watched his videos as a little kid. So I can't wait for that. But
Chasing down there this year for me was something I had never really done before down in the deep south. And yet it was weird. Like it to me, it never felt like I was storm chasing the way it feels out west because you don't really have that gradual build up to a tornado. Out west, you have the dark skies, sometimes the outflow boundary, the gust front, the strong winds, the crazy rainfall, then the hail. The hail gets bigger, and then because I usually try to drop in from the northeast, then you get the clear slot and then the tornado. Whereas here, when I was chasing the storm in Greensboro, like that was a big, nasty, mile wide. I mean, EF3 wedge that was in the ground for, gosh, 80 plus miles. That one, it was weird. It was literally just like chasing a regular run of the mill thunderstorm where something was off. Like I was probably only 3 or 4 miles from the tornado. You could still see clear skies on the south side of the storm. There was just this behemoth rain wrapped mass that was coming through. It it was rainy, it was pouring. I was about 1.6 miles away when I got really close. And I decided to go south another half mile. And I said to myself, if I get down to about 1 mile and I can't see it, I'm turning around because I don't screw with rain wrap tornado. And like I've dealt with rain wrap tornadoes before. If it's little, maybe I'll go for it. Like, and I'm not trying to get in the path, but if it, you know what I mean? Like if it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
manageable, then you're good. But if there's a mile plus debris ball coming at you, then like no, I don't mess with that. And so I got down to a mile, said nope. I just pulled over and just regular rainstorm, regular rainstorm, regular rainstorm, and then all of a sudden it was like this 60-second thing. I don't know if you guys have seen a solar eclipse, but this was exactly what it reminded me of. The sky, you could see the darkness settling in. Just the sky completely got dark in the course of 15 to 30 seconds in a way that would be tough to describe. It was like someone was just turning down the brightness on my monitor, but in real life. It stayed like that for a little bit. You just barely saw this big darkness move across the road, and then the winds switched direction like this. You felt it buffeting on the left side of your car instead of the right side, and that was that. And that was the only thing. Like, if you weren't a meteorologist, you had no idea that you were a mile from this column of death. And then I drove south and was in the path right away. The road network was horrible.
Yeah, my friends were down there. A couple of people I know was down there on that high risk day, and they were chasing and they lost cell service, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna try to get south of it," and they were right in the path, and they didn't even know it, but they got clipped on the outer circulation of it on the north side, and I'm still amazed on how they got out of that alive, but I'm very thankful for them to be alive and be well.
I think I know which road they were on because I was on that road too, and I had cell service that was spotty. So I just kind of extrapolated from a freeze frame I had, and it was pretty nerve wracking. It was that and the lack of escape routes. And I don't know if I'll chase that area again, simply because if you don't have a drone, your odds of seeing something are not very good unless you're right up on it, which would be kind of scary. But I wanted to get south of it. There was a road that was taking me due south. I probably, in retrospect, could have made it. There's a 70% chance I would have had time to get south of it. But for me, 70% is not enough. Like, because 30% and you're screwed. And I couldn't do that. There's a road that would have taken me southeast and given me a little bit of time to get ahead of it. On Google Maps, it looked fine. But I wound up driving that road afterwards and to try to get into the damage path. And the road I would have been on would have been a dead end. And I'm so thankful I didn't take that road because that's one thing, like you never know. I guess out west at least, you can assume the mile grid is going to be mile grid. And if that road doesn't work, you can go to the next one. Here, this would have been the only road for me. There would have been no options, and turning back would have also put me in the path of the tornado. So I was really fortunate. I doubt I'll chase down there again. I love it, but I just
Yeah.
it creeped me out.
Yeah, and Brandon, I'll say you can second guess yourself, or you can I won't say second guess, but you can like fill in on that. I think you live in Birmingham or something like that. I do believe so.
Yeah, so I grew up south of Birmingham. Um, I mean, I just started chasing the past year, so I don't have a lot of experience with chasing Dixie. But I mean, I have a pretty similar experience with Matthew with Bassfield. Bassfield was my first chase. I talked about it last. Did we lose Norman? I think we lost Norman.
Looks like it.
Was it something I said?
Yeah, I think you hurt his feelings.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot.
Oh, looks like I'll say I just got back. I had to go.
Oh, there we go.
Turn my
Okay.
fan on in my room, but Vince's camera's back on. There we go.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, I just don't want to go down there and get in the same situation as Paul, Andrew, Tyler did. I mean, I was watching live on Radar, and I was with another friend because we're in a group chat on Discord. We've known each other for a while, and I've met up with him before. And watching that unfold, it was scary. Like I was like, okay, maybe they're spotted on, didn't update. I'm like, all right, they're probably out there and they're safe. But once I seen their spotter dot update and they were south and that, and the radar just instantly updated, I was like, oh no, like that's when fear hit. And I was like constantly calling them on Twitter, hey, you guys okay? You guys okay? And luckily they managed to get out. But yeah, they had no other option. I mean, they could either go south or, if they went further north, then, they'd still be in the path regardless. And it's just kind of like, I just don't want that to happen to me. So. And I feel like for people it's not born down there, if you will, like what Brandon is. Like, I feel like, plains chasers that are used to it, I feel like I would probably, chase with somebody else that's definitely more knowledgeable down there. But, it's just, I always have that fear in the back of my head every time I chase. Like, because even when I was in Kentucky, like, it was just a marginal day. I still always thought, like, hey, if these supercells did drop a tornado, and this is back like in April, I was like, I have barely any cell service, and I wouldn't be able to see anything because I was near the Jackson, Kentucky radar, like far eastern Kentucky, almost near West Virginia, and I had hardly any cell service. Radar scans frequently updated. That was probably the scariest chase day of my life, I'd probably say. But I'll say, Vince, have you ever chased Dixie? Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard any Dixie stories from you.
Yeah, I've been down there several times. I think my first chase was actually somewhere in Louisiana, and it was not a good first chase. I mean, I mainly go down there and have little success, and it's not necessarily that I get in a bad spot. It's just, you can't see anything, so you don't even know if you're being successful or not. I mean, I have a drone, but sometimes you can't get it up when it's pouring rain. You're screwed. The main reason I go down there is because I live in Wisconsin and it can be 15 degrees up here, and it's an excuse to go and escape to like 70-degree weather. And that's honestly my main drive for going down there. It could be a super marginal day in the middle of December. I'll just go down there anyway. But I was down there for that first high risk day, not the second one, but the first one. And we got pretty close to the Selma, Alabama wedge. I saw the left side of it. Reed Timmer was in front of me, and he said he saw the right. So I'm going to say that you put the left and right together, that's the whole tornado. So I'm going to say we saw the whole thing. But it's just so frustrating because you're right there. And that's like even more frustrating than a bust for me, because you can just be a mile away from this thing, and there's nothing but pine trees. Like 200 foot tall, it seems like pine trees. And, your LCLs are like below the pine trees, it seems like, and like the whole sky is the wedge. So, when the sky is below the tops of the trees, it's really tough to chase. It's just so frustrating because you're right there. And then when you look at radar and it's dissipated, it's like, well, I was right there, but it's a pain, it's fun sometimes. And there are areas that are okay. You get close to the river delta, and it's not bad. And if you're lucky enough to find a good spot to sit and watch, but it's just few and far between. And it's like Matthew said, I mean, storm motions and everything. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I feel like they're kind of the same way up here, but I don't know. That's why definitely when I went out to West, I was like, yeah, this is so much better. Like I've been missing out. But so Matthew, tell us about like your those tornado warnings in DC. Like how was that for like your first day experience?
I knew years and years and years in advance that whatever my first day on air was, there would be a tornado there for me, or something crazy would happen. I was only supposed to be doing kind of like promotional things like, hey, I'm the new meteorologist, tune in at this forecast, whatever, to see me. And here's kind of what I've done in DC before, just to become acquainted with the viewers, and so they knew me and knew who I was, and that, like, I look like I'm 12 years old. So it's more an effort of trying to get me to talk so that they know that they can listen to me, that I'm decently qualified for this. And so that morning, I was slated to be in around 10 o'clock. I was supposed to be doing just kind of a sit-down meet and greet with the anchors, which would have been fine. And then Tucker Barnes, the morning meteorologist, super nice guy, great meteorologist, surprised me 10 minutes before, and he said, hey, here's a 90-second hit. You're going to be doing this. This will be your introduction, which was honestly great, because I feel like if I had known much further out that I'd be doing that and that'd be like my first actual hit, I think I would have psyched myself out. So the fact that I only had 10 minutes warning was perfect. And so, yeah, I just stood next to the green screen. He called me over and said, hey, this new meteorologist. We chatted real quick, and it went super well. So that was about 10:15, 10:30. Did that. I went home because I was slated to do my next thing at 4:45, and that was going to be a whole segment. Like, it was going to be about 4 or 5 minutes. They showed tornado videos and stuff, but I wound up going in. I just had this weird feeling. I wound up going in about 3 o'clock, and I went downstairs to where the weather center is, and the chief meteorologist, Sue Palka, who is, I hadn't met her yet. She's literally the nicest person in the entire universe. Like, she's like a combination of weather mother and weather grandmother, and just brilliantly knowledgeable, has been here, I think 30 plus, like, I'm only 23. She's been here long before I've even been alive. And so she's a phenomenal forecaster too. And we were talking, geeking out about all things weather and whatnot. And we talked for probably 45 minutes. And I look on the screen, and because I had Max, the radar program, pulled up in front of me, and I was kind of looking at this area of pretty strong winds off to our east. And it was bowing out. It looked to be on a stalled boundary. But the RFD surge was pretty impressive, and had a correlation coefficient signature too, which at the time I thought was leaf debris being kicked up, not from a tornado, but from straight line RFD surge winds. It wound up being melting hail that was kind of spiky and helping drag down winds even more. But I said, hey, look at this. This looks kind of weird. And as we're looking at it, a little red box pops up, tornado warning. And it was out of DC, but still in the viewing area. So Caitlin, what's her last name? Caitlin Roth, who was the 4 p.m. meteorologist, was already up there. She was waiting for the engineers to get on air so she could start doing tornado coverage. Sue starts rushing too, and she said to me, hey, come on up and put a microphone on. I was like, oh, I'm doing this too? She said, yeah. And I was like, I was wearing this. I was wearing my gym shorts. I didn't have my hair or makeup done or anything yet. Like, I looked like death. And so I stood off screen and just had my microphone on, and I had radar scope pulled up in front of me because I like the unsmooth data. So I just, we had a conversation and just walked in, was on air immediately, flipped my microphone on, and just started talking about the tornado potential and just going through the motions. It was great. So I had a blast, and that took me to about 4 o'clock. I go back downstairs, and now I have to actually put my suit on and stuff for my 4:45 hit. I do that. That was a fun time. And then I did a 30-minute show at 7 o'clock. It was like their pop culture variety show. Did that from 7 to 7:30. Then Jim Lokay, the main anchor, took me out to dinner. I had grown up watching him at Channel 5 in Boston. Super nice guy. So we went to dinner. And around 9-ish, as we were leaving dinner, I was looking at radar. I was like, oh, that looks really suspect. And it's traveling along the same boundary. I wonder if something will happen. And we were right next door, probably about five minutes-ish away from the studios. I was slated to just go home. He was going back to the station. So I was driving behind him, and he pulls into the station, but all of a sudden I get this alert on my phone. I look down, I'm like, tornado warning. And immediately I pull into the station. And the second I pull in, the leading edge of the line starts coming in. It starts pouring. I don't even have time to grab my suit jacket. And my sleeves are already rolled up from dinner time because, like, I'm a mess. I knew I'd spill something on myself. So my sleeves rolled up. And I sprinted inside trying to avoid the rain. And they were already wall-to-wall tornado warning coverage. So I walked in the studio. Maurice, the stage person, handed me a microphone, and I just kind of nodded at Sue, and then she motioned at me, and so I snuck around back. And as Caitlin was talking, I said, "Hey, do you want me to hop on the wall?" She said, "Sure." Like, and the fact that she would give this day one on-air meteorologist the chance to just hop on the wall was an incredibly thoughtful gesture. Like, that just shows what kind of person she is. I just walked over to the wall, and she was driving the radar, had street level mapping on, and I had my sleeves up. I wasn't looking like a beauty queen or anything. My wire was dangling off the back of my shirt, and I just James spanned it, and I was like, all right, this area right here, straight line winds, right here's the circulation, wind towards the radar, inflow notch, and just did that for about a minute and a half, and it was a blast. And then I snuck off camera and did a couple more things. Finally, the warning expired around 9:30ish, but I hopped on. I got there, I forget what time, but I hopped on as the second EF0 was on the ground right east of Union Station in DC. So we had 2 tornadoes. One in EF1, one in EF0. Damage was pretty intermittent. It was not a continuous path by any means, but still, to have something like that in DC, and I've seen some of the tree damage, like it was real tree damage. It's pretty impressive. But that's how I like to start.
Yeah, and that was pretty crazy to watch on radar because I wasn't expecting anything that day, and I knew you started your day. I seen you on Twitter. You starting at Fox 5 that day, and I was like, okay, like, I was in the back of my head because I usually think about like scenarios like if I would go out and chase. Like I've been off work here recently a whole lot because we're overstaffed in my part-time job, and I'm trying to find a new one. And I was like, I might just go out like 5-hour drive, like it's I'm like, okay, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It was just a really iffy thought in the back of my head, and I was like, it ain't gonna do anything. But then I seen those tornado warnings. I'm like, holy crap! But I love DC. I've been to only DC one time. I'm a huge history buff. I love going to the memorials and stuff like that. I took my 5th grade trip there one time, and it was really a blast. But so I kind of want to do a new segment on here. I'm kind of winging this. I don't have a script or anything, so. But I would like to start with Matthew on this. But other than weather, do you have like any other hobbies that you do? Like any fun hobbies?
Honestly, I'm trying to figure that out too. Like, I don't know what I do in my free time. Partly because I don't have much free time between. I work like 5 jobs. I do obviously the Washington Post, which was 40 hours a week. I've cut back down to 20 now. I do Fox 5. I do WAMU, the radio station. I teach a public speaking class. I work as an educational consultant and do some tutoring too. So I'm always busy with work, and when I'm not busy, I'm either napping or sleeping or going out to eat with one of my friends. And so that keeps me pretty busy. I love all things travel. When I have time, I try to bunch it all together so I can travel. So I was down at Universal Studios, I think 2 weeks ago. I went skydiving down there. That was pretty fun. So yeah, I love travel. I love getting out and about. But I need to find like a day-to-day hobby that I can do. I've been trying to take up running. I hate exercise. Exercise is boring. I'd much rather eat. But I got to slim down and fit my slim fit suit to be on air so I don't get the nasty emails from people. But I found that if I do slim down, I look decent, I get creepy emails from people. So I get either the nasty emails or the creepy emails. So I guess I'll take the creepy one. But I need to find a hobby. I've been looking for the longest time. It's tricky when it's great that I get to do my passion for work.
Right.
But also, what do I do in my spare time? It's like I come home and like, well, I guess I'll do more weather now.
Right.
I got to find something.
Yeah, it's like I've hardly had any time because by the time I think about it, I either get called into work or I'm like, oh, I have to go to work, and then I just go home and sleep because me personally, I am not a morning person. Like when I was out chasing, I was like, ugh, about getting up in the morning. I usually my morning hours are like 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. But I'll say, Vince, do you have any like hobbies? We'll go around in circle. But Vince, do you have any like hobbies that you do?
Well, not really. I can kind of relate to that. So I don't really do anything besides the weather. It seems like I used to do a lot of stuff. I used to be an instructor for like the introductory level paramedic classes, like EMT basic. I had that all set up, and I would assist with that, whatever. And I couldn't do that anymore. I'm like, this is boring. I need to do more boring stuff, like stare at the SPC meso analysis all day. That's real fun. Not. So I'm a big traveler. If I go out, for example, you've seen I know Norman, you have the potato chasers video. I'm out in Montana, and there's nothing to do. So it's a down day between storm chases. So of course, I'll go explore the state park. I'll walk around. I really like this traveling and adventuring thing, and that's kind of something that I think is going to become more of the storm chasing career here. I'm trying to do more of that traveling and adventuring because it kind of does go hand in hand. But short answer, no, I don't really have any hobbies. I mean, I have a drone, and that's cool. Like 3-4 years ago, that was something that you could brag about. Now everybody has one. So I used to be the guy with like this. I think I had a bumper sticker that said "I fly drones" or something. I felt all cool, but now everybody has one, so I can't use that as an excuse anymore.
I'll say, what did you like? How did the potato chasing start? Because I seen it on Reed's thing. I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, what? Like, how did that even start?
Yeah, so we go into I think it's Makashika or Makashika, whatever state park there in Glendive, Montana, there, southeast Montana. And I guess, and I didn't witness this. Reed said he did, so I'm going off of his word. But he said at the beginning of the trail there's a sign that said, you'll see like elves, pixies, and potatoes or whatever. And I guess the potatoes were supposed to be like the potato shaped rocks. So we kept finding these rocks that were shaped like potatoes. That's kind of where it came from. And we were super bored that night. We met up with a guy who was actually a geologist, and he was actually a professor at like North Dakota State University or something. So, here we're acting like we know everything because we read the sign, and this guy's like, "Oh, I'm actually a PhD and I'm a geologist." I'm like, "Oh, wow, I feel stupid." But yeah, we got quite the geology lesson from this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, you should make a video about this, or whatever." So, made this just ridiculously stupid video. It was just dumb in this Love's truck stop parking, or no, it wasn't a Love's. It was actually a Pilot parking lot at like 2 o'clock in the morning, just out of pure boredom. But yeah, that was just a real strange day. It was basically just a nature walk through the state park that turned into kind of mocking everything that looked like a potato. So now I take the potato-shaped rock with me everywhere I go, and so far it let me down a little bit. I've got like 3 or 4 tornadoes while I've had this rock with me. But to be fair, every time I've had this rock with me, I did get stuck in the mud with my two-wheel drive sedan, but I got out on my own power, so that's good. And I didn't die on any of these storm chases, so I guess it is a lucky potato. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's working.
I feel like you need to go and deep dive into Reed tomorrow with that story. I can't wait to hear Reed's side of the story, and like what we said off air or off the before we started the podcast. You Reed doesn't know you're on here, so I bet that's gonna be a real treat.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I considered texting him the other night. I was gonna say, "Hey, I hear you're coming on this podcast," but I didn't. I held off, so I'm gonna see if I can screen share instead of my webcam. I'm just gonna put up a picture of this rock for like my whatever. So you've got this grid view. It's just a picture of the rock. Maybe we'll blur out my name or whatever, see if it catches on. But yeah, that was a fun day, and that's what storm chasing is about. I mean, you got to have fun with friends. I mean,
Yeah.
especially on down days. I mean, I love going out and exploring and just doing stuff like that. It's a lot better than sitting in your car and the 90-degree heat.
I've noticed that the more I storm chase and the more I like go out with more people, it's like the even like on bus days, the times like the meetups before the chase or after the chase, that's like some days it's like that's better than the actual chase day itself. I remember on there was a 5% in Ohio, in like Northwest Ohio, the SPC just upgraded. It was for an MCV that was strolling through, and I was already up there with my friend James Treft, and I've been friends with him for a while. And he was like, "Hey, you realize there's a setup or a potential tornado setup, right?" And I'm like, "What?" And obviously didn't bring in my camera gear. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You wanna go chase it?" I'm like, "Sure." But we didn't get any tornadoes. We were on that tornado warning in like Northwest Ohio, like at like real like sunset. We didn't see anything. But it was me, him, and like another chaser met up at Waffle House, and that was like the best part of the day. So.
Waffle House?
Oh yeah, yeah, you're a
Yes.
big Waffle House connoisseur. Oh dude, I love Waffle House. That's like my favorite thing ever in the world.
I love Waffle House for a variety of reasons. Notwithstanding their food is delicious, it's cheap. I'm very cheap when it comes to food. Like a lot of my friends know this. In DC, I will go to all the cheapest places. I love Wawa. I love Sheets. I love Waffle House. I eat whatever is cheapest, and I love it. You can get a grilled cheese sandwich for $1.99, and it is the best grilled cheese you've ever had. It might be deep fried with butter. It might not be healthy, but it's yummy, and that's all I need. I love it too because the people watching is amazing. It's open 24/7. It's not judgmental. But when I go in there, we know I'm a little bit scatterbrained, and I'm my own sort of natural disaster. But when I go in there, there's so much chaos all around me that suddenly I feel very like grounded and normal by comparison. And it's nice to suddenly be like the least natural disaster thing in my environment. So Waffle House is like that confidence boost I need.
So what's a Wawa? I don't have any of those in Ohio, but like elaborate on a Wawa.
Wawa started originally as a gas station slash creamery in in Wawa Township, Pennsylvania, and grew quickly. Nowadays, they're their own brand of convenience stores they sell gas at gas stations, but they've moved to DC as just kind of a convenience store thing. And they have amazing sandwiches, amazing hoagies. They have like a little bakery in there. They'll make food quick, burritos, paninis, stuff like that, the hoagies, and a few other things. But they're just so good. They make everything with love, and it's cheap. And they built a new one near the Washington Post, so it's a good thing I'm not at the office anymore. Otherwise, I'd get a ton of weight. Except I found out yesterday there's apparently a Wawa right next to the old Fox 5 station. We're moving studios in about, we don't know, probably 3-4 weeks' time. But there's a Wawa next door, and it was already a dream job. That just makes it even better.
Wow, that's awesome. We don't have any Waffle Houses where I live, so the nearest one's like in Columbus, and it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. So every time I go up to my buddy's house, I'm like, dude, we have to eat Waffle House, and he's probably hating me for it, and he's tired of me hearing it. But I love Waffle House so much. It's like it's so cheap. I always get the All-Star breakfast when I'm there. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. I'm always getting that. And it's like it's really cheap. It's like $11, and people are there really nice. The servers are always nice, and it's like they actually make their food out of love, and it's not like some fast food place. It's like there's like have a nice day here, So it's like it's just an all around good experience. But Brandon, do you have any like hobbies that you do other than like storm chase or just weather?
Not really. Now I just wake up, go to class, study weather, come home, take pictures of the clouds. I've always liked martial arts. I actually start classes today at a gym up in Diagreville at America's Top Team. I get a free trial class today, so I'm probably gonna start picking that up. So I guess you could call that a hobby in the making, maybe. But I mean, really, other than weather, there's nothing, anything, or anybody could possibly interest me with that would bring me the same enjoyment that weather would.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But so also, I kind of want to ask this random question. I'm big into paranormal stuff. I love paranormal. It goes in hand in hand with traveling. I like to go out and travel, not only with weather, but just national parks. I've been to Yellowstone one time. I've been to Jackson, Wyoming. Love that place. I was hoping I could retire there one day, but that's way down the line. But I'll say this is kind of like a weird segment where I'm probably gonna ask a weird question like every at the end of a podcast. So the first weird question on the podcast is, do you believe in the paranormal? We'll start off with Matthew.
That is a good question. To be honest, I don't know. I've never had any experiences like that myself. I wish I had a good answer. I can't discount it. I can't confirm it. I don't know. There are definitely times when you get that sixth sense. You feel like something's a little bit off. You feel a little creeped out, and you got to remove yourself from the situation. And most times I've had that before. It's wound up being correct. I don't know. There are a couple of hotels I stayed in storm chasing where I'm definitely like, something here is a little bit off. But I'm still alive, so that's good.
Yeah. Vince, do you have any? What do you think?
Well, I don't have enough evidence to support a professional opinion on this. However, I did used to date a girl that was like obsessed with it, and it was really creepy. So I don't know. The meteorologist, scientist kind of part of all of us wants to say no, it's not scientifically possible. But it's kind of like you both said. Sometimes you get this feeling, and it's like I don't know. But you can really argue that with it goes back to that whole theory of if the universe is infinite, whatever, and there's a million different possibilities and blah blah blah. We don't know everything. So I guess my thing is I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and argue. And people that think it's a possibility, I definitely won't say they're wrong because there's absolutely no proof that I know of that says they are wrong. So I guess I'll say it's definitely a possibility, but it doesn't have anything to do to weather. So I don't really know anything about it. So you're probably more expert than I am. So I'll take your word. How's that?
All right, Brandon, do you have any stories, or what do you think?
I don't know. I'm not gonna confirm or deny it. I did grow up in Birmingham, so I've been to Sloss Furnace. I'm sure you know about Sloss being
I've never heard of it. What is that?
It's a iron mill in downtown Birmingham because Birmingham when it was first getting started was an iron city. That's why it's called the Iron City because Birmingham used to export a lot of iron, but a lot of the workers died there because the working conditions there were they're pretty poor, and so it's always been told that Lost is super paranormal. There's ghosts there. I think the show was Ghost Adventures. Can't remember what channel it was on. Like all those shows, they'd go to Sloth Furnace, say it was haunted. I've been there at night. I don't know, nothing happened. No shadows came around a corner and attacked me. I just think it's a bunch of course, it's just a little fairy tale or something. But I don't know. I mean, we'll never know until we actually die if ghosts are real. So I'm not gonna say I can confirm nor deny it because I'm not a ghost.
See, I would say, as much as I'm interested in it, I really don't know myself. Like I watch Ghost Adventures, I've always watched it, but apparently the place I work at's haunted. And I've had one experience, but it was just really shady, and I could be like, well, it could have been that, could have been this, but I've heard from stories of managers of stuff falling off shelves, and because of I think one of our produce workers died just like after he got off work. I think he had a heart attack and he died. But I've heard stories, and I think it's kind of baloney. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I hear people's stories, and it's just like I don't know. It's just really really conflicting. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? For the people watching, leave your comments in the below. If you have any stories, make sure to type that too. We'd love to hear stories. But Matthew, I want to say thank you for coming on to the podcast. It was an honor to have you on, and I wish we could have had more co-hosts, but hey, that's okay. But yeah, thanks, Matthew. I do appreciate it.
Hey, my absolute pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite, and anytime I'll be back.
Yeah, and
Thanks, Matthew.
do you have any like last minute thoughts, or want to shout out anything, or?
Last minute thoughts are pretty much going to be me going back to sleep soon. Like I said, my sleep schedule is all screwed up, so I'm a little bit lower energy right now than I otherwise would normally be. So last minute thoughts. Know your counties. I'm trying to memorize the counties in and around DC right now. Obviously, like I know DC, Montgomery, Fairfax, Prince George's, Charles, St. Mary, Cabot counties. I have to know the rest of these though in our viewing area. So know your counties.
All right. Does anybody else want to have any last second thoughts or any questions for Matthew?
The only thing I might add, I don't know if you do this already or not, Norman, but not to rip off the Stormfront freaks here or anything, but maybe see how everybody can follow Matthew.
I was like, yeah, Matthew, do you have which I know, but for other people that's watching, what's your social media?
Everything's Matthew Cappucci. Cappucci spelled like cappuccino without the no. So that's how I normally kind of explain it, nice and easy. And yeah, I post tons of weather geekery and weather charts and stuff like that, storm chase adventures. And of course, you will get plenty of my social media updates on my various escapades to Waffle House, Wawa, and Sheets.
I'm going to stay tuned for those Waffle House updates. I need those.
Come for the weather, stay for the waffles.
Yes. Exactly. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Tomorrow we're going to be airing episode 3. We're going to be trying to tomorrow evening with Reed Timmer. So, stay tuned for that. But thanks again, Matthew, for joining, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.